This is the Getting Started tutorial for Object2VR. In this screencast, I'll show you the basic steps needed to create Object2VR movies from your single or multi-row image sequences. Start by importing your sequence into Object2VR. The easiest way to do this is with the light table. The light table has 3 sections. The top section is used to define how the light tables should be organized. The middle section is where the images will be imported and can be arranged, and the bottom section is for spare images. This is handy for rearranging. Before importing, first define how many columns and rows the images make up. I have here a single row project which has 24 images or columns. Update the light table and the correct number of columns and rows will appear, represented by placeholders, which are squares with the diagonal lines. Next, choose Add Images, select all the images, and choose Open. You can also add the images by selecting all of them from a directory and drag them onto the first placeholder. To better see all the images, adjust the image size here, where you can use a slider or dial in the pixel width of the images. The light table makes it easy to rearrange images. You can delete, swap, and move images around. The Spare Images section can be used for temporary storage. Next, go to the Viewing Parameter settings where you can set the default view and controls for the movie. Change the default view by dragging the image to the desired position and then click Set. There are 3 types of controllers to choose from. The grabber scroller uses the drag and move action from the mouse. Absolute will react to the position of a mouse click within the image. And joystick is similar to the grabber, but movement will continue infinitely. The next set of options affect the movie's horizontal and vertical movement. Choose Wrap to make sure your movie spins 360 degrees. Disabling wrap is useful when you don't have a full set of images. Reverse causes the movie to move in the opposite direction of the mouse or controller movement. And swap will cause the movie to move opposite to the controller's movement, meaning if the controller is moving horizontally, the movie will move vertically. In the User Data section, you can add metadata to your movie. In the hotspot settings, you must first enable the hotspots in order to add one. The next step here is to choose whether or not to reuse the hotspot over the series of images. If columns is chosen, the hotspots will be used for all images. When a project has multiple rows, you can define one image per row or column for the hotspot. In this example, I want to add hotspots to the car, so I'm not going to enable the reuse of the hotspot. This means that I can define individual hotspots for each image. In the Output section of the main project window, you can output your object movie to QuickTime or Flash. For this single row project, I'll output it as QuickTime. Starting with the image settings, you can define the image width in pixels, or choose to keep auto-enabled, which defines the image width based on the movie window size. Image quality is a JPEG compression. Under Display, you can change the window size of the movie. You can choose to have the movie autoplay or rotate. Rotate will auto-rotate the movie, while Ping Pong will bounce the movie back and forth between the first and last images. And finally, you have the option to enable zoom. Choose your default and maximum zoom percentages, and then define the center of the zoom. The default is set to a coordinate of 0, 0, but you can offset this by dialing in the numbers. One thing to note is that zoom, when used in QuickTime, will only work correctly inside an HTML page. If you would like to output an HTML file with your movie, make sure it is enabled and then set the parameters. A few notable options here. One is the ability to customize the user data table, which displays the information added in the user data section, and the other is that a sound file can be embedded. Click OK and output the movie. Another option for importing images is through Select Input. I have a multi-row project here that I'll import using the Image Sequence option. This is quite useful for those who have a large amount of images to import, especially when using the light table just isn't practical. First, choose the base file path of the images so Object2VR knows where to look for them. In the Sequence Setup section, define the number of columns and rows, and then define or describe the sequence pattern using JavaScript. For my sequence, I can use this pattern. Test the pattern to make sure Object2VR finds the images. For more information and pattern examples, check out the help page. And when all is well, click OK to continue. In viewing parameters, set the default view and the control. You can see that my images are a 3D rendering of a head and a skull. And this looks like a good angle to use as a default view, so I'll set that. For the type of control, I'll use absolute this time. This controls the movie through absolute points, meaning clicking on an area in the image will cause the movie to move. You'll also notice that currently the flesh reveals the skull in a downward movement when my mouse moves upwards. I find this a bit unnatural, so I want to change this. Selecting reverse in the vertical section will fix it. I'll choose no here because I don't want this current view saved as the default view. Enter user data if you wish, and perhaps a hotspot or two. For this project, I'll reuse a hotspot images for both the column and row images. For this project, I'll output it as a Flash movie. The Flash parameters are similar to the QuickTime parameters, with image and display settings, autoplay and zoom, but with the added ability to add a skin and controller. In the image settings, the image width and quality are the same as the QuickTime settings. The window size can be adjusted and the aspect ratio can be kept. And additionally, you can set the frame rate. And for this project, I'll leave it at 50 frames. Scaling lets you pick how the object movie will be resized when its window changes. With window, we'll scale so that the object movie will maintain its aspect ratio regardless of the window size. Choose an autoplay mode and speed. Enable zoom if necessary. I'll add a preloaded controller and make some changes to it. In the skin editor, I'll delete the loading bar window and refine the controller a bit. You can build your own skin and controller using the skin editor, which works the same as the skin editor in Object2VR. If you're curious on how to build skins, check out the skin tutorials on our tutorial page. In the Advanced tab, in the Hotspot section, you can customize the look of the hotspot text box. For this project, the hotspots are being used as information boxes, so perhaps it's worth changing the parameters. Finally, name the movie and choose where to save it. Then click OK to output it. And here's the final output with the hotspots and revised skin.